Have you ever wondered why so many men over 50 wake up feeling drained, unfocused, and strangely disconnected from the part of themselves that once felt powerful and alive, even when nothing seems wrong on the outside? I ask you this because over the years, I've watched countless men walk into my office with the same quiet fear in their eyes, a fear they rarely say out loud. The fear that their body is slowing down and they don't know how to stop it. The fear that their sleep is no longer restoring them. The fear that their drive, their confidence, and even their intimacy are slipping through their fingers one exhausting night at a time. And yet, what still surprises me, even after seeing this pattern for so long, is that the solution isn't always found in a prescription bottle or a complicated treatment plan. Sometimes it begins with something far smaller, far simpler, and almost unbelievable in its impact, something that most men never consider until I ask them one question that stops them in their tracks. What if the way you dress for bed is silently working against your hormones, your circulation, and your performance as a man every single night? I've seen the look of confusion, disbelief, even embarrassment, but right after that comes curiosity, because when men finally understand what's actually happening inside their body while they sleep and why something as simple as removing one layer can change everything, that's when the fear begins to fade. That's when hope settles in. And that's when their story starts to shift. So stay with me, because what I'm about to share is not a theory, and it's not a trend. It's something I've witnessed in real patients, real bodies, and real transformations. And it might be the one change you never expected to matter, but could change your nights and your days more than you can imagine. When I first started paying attention to the sleep patterns of my male patients, over 51 things struck me. More than anything else, almost every single one of them was sleeping in environments far too warm for their bodies to function properly. And I don't mean a little warm, I mean warm enough to throw off some of the most important systems they rely on to feel strong, focused, and alive. What most men don't realize is that their body isn't asking for luxury or comfort at night. It's asking for coolness. It's asking for room to breathe. It's asking for a lower internal temperature so it can do the work that keeps them healthy during the day. I've seen this play out again and again. A man walks into my office complaining that he wakes up tired, restless, unfocused, and he has no idea why. He thinks it's age or stress or just how things are now. But when I ask about his sleep environment, the layers he wears, the fabrics, he chooses, the heat trapped around his body, that's when the real story starts to unfold. Because here's what the science tells us: your core temperature must drop by at least 2 to 3 degrees for your brain to release enough melatonin to push you into deep restorative sleep. And if that drop never happens, your body keeps fighting itself all night long, like an engine pretending to run smoothly while something burns inside it. I've watched men describe nights filled with tossing and turning confusion about why they can't stay asleep, why they wake up sweating, or why they feel like they never truly shut down. And the moment I explain the physiology, how excess heat blocks REM sleep, how synthetic fabrics trap warmth, how tight waistbands create micro-stress, your nervous system has to respond to everything suddenly clicks for them. Because it's not random, it's not aging, it's not just in their head, it's the environment they're sleeping in. And the worst part is they don't feel it happening. Heat doesn't warn you, it just quietly disrupts everything you need to repair, restore, and perform. But here's where things get even more interesting. When men finally remove those layers, not for comfort, but for biology, their body responds almost immediately. I've had patients tell me I slept deeper than I have in months, or I didn't wake up every hour, or I felt like my brain actually reset. And the reason is simple. Once the body cools, melatonin flows. Once melatonin flows, deep sleep returns. And once deep sleep returns, everything else begins to improve: energy, clarity, mood, and the confidence they thought they had lost for good. And this is the part that surprises most men. Temperature isn't just about sleep. It's tied to hormone circulation and even performance. When your body stays too warm at night, it's not just your rest that suffers, it's the systems that make you feel like you. And once you understand how powerful that temperature shift really is, the next discovery becomes even more shocking, because the heat affecting your sleep is also affecting something else far more important to your identity as a man. And that's exactly where we need to go next, because what happens to your hormones at night is the part almost no one talks about, but every man deserves to hear. What most men don't realize, and what I've seen play out over and over again in my patients, is that the moment their sleep gets disrupted, their hormones begin to take the hit long before they feel anything wrong. And this is where things turn from inconvenient to dangerous, because while you sleep, your body isn't resting. It's performing one of the most important maintenance jobs you rely on as a man: rebuilding your testosterone. And if the temperature sabotage we talked about in the previous section keeps you from dropping into deep sleep, that hormonal rebuild never fully happens. It's like asking your body to refill a tank while the hose is kinked. The effort is there, but the outcome never reaches what you need. I've sat across from men who told me they felt foggy, slower, not themselves, and they couldn't understand why everything, their motivation, their focus, their drive, had started to fade. And every time it leads back to the same biological truth: over 70% of a man's daily testosterone is produced while he sleeps, especially in the early cycles of deep sleep. Miss those cycles and your hormone levels take a hit before the sun even rises. That's why so many men wake up feeling older than they are. It's not age, it's interrupted biology. And here's the part that often shocks them the most. When sleep is fragmented, whether from heat-tight clothing or micro-awakenings, they don't notice their body doesn't just fail to produce enough testosterone. It actually shifts gears and produces more cortisol, the hormone that screams, "I'm under stress," even when life feels normal. And cortisol is a powerful disruptor. It blocks testosterone production, steals energy, dulls desire, and makes it harder for the body to perform in every sense of the word. I've seen men who felt like they were losing confidence or masculinity only to discover that their body wasn't betraying them. Their sleep environment was. When I explain this chain reaction to patients, I watch the realization wash over them. It's like solving a puzzle they've been struggling with for years. So it's not me they ask. It's not all in my head. And I always tell them the same thing: your body isn't broken, it's overwhelmed. Because when your hormones spend all night fighting heat stress and compression, they simply can't rise to the level you expect them to during the day. And this is why such a small change, cooling the body, freeing the skin, lowering nightly stress signals, creates results that feel so big. Once the body is no longer forced into that stressful hormonal loop, testosterone rises naturally. Men tell me they feel clearer, more stable, more confident, more grounded in themselves, not from supplements, not from extreme routines, but from giving their body permission to do what it already knows how to do. But if hormones are the chemistry behind how a man feels, then circulation is the engine behind how a man performs. And that's where the next part of this story gets even more critical, because poor circulation doesn't just show up in lab results or during a workout. It shows up in the most sensitive, most personal part of a man's life. And what happens to blood flow at night is something most men never notice until it starts affecting them in ways they can no longer ignore. What I began noticing, especially in men over 50, is that the moment their hormones start slipping, another problem quietly rises in the background, a problem they usually don't see coming until it finally affects the part of their body they care about most. And that problem is circulation. Not the circulation your smart watch tracks, not the kind that shows up on a blood pressure monitor. I'm talking about the kind of blood flow that determines strength sensitivity and the confidence a man feels in his most intimate moments. And the surprising part is this poor circulation almost never starts in the heart or the lungs or the major arteries. For many men, it starts in the smallest vessels, the ones around the pelvis, the groin, the lower abdomen, the places that quietly depend on nighttime freedom to function at their best. When those vessels are compressed, heated, squeezed, or restricted night after night, even by soft or comfortable clothing, they begin to lose their natural elasticity. It's subtle at first, but I've watched it progress. Blood doesn't rush the way it used to. Nerves don't fire with the same clarity. The tissue doesn't receive the oxygen it needs to stay firm, responsive, and alive. I've had countless male patients share the same confession: I thought something was wrong with me. But the truth, which I wish more men understood, is that this decline rarely begins inside their masculinity. It begins inside their sleep habits. Tight waistbands act like a quiet tourniquet. Synthetic fabrics trap heat that weakens the microvessels. Compression at night interrupts the natural expansion and relaxation those tissues need to stay healthy. And because the problem develops slowly, men don't notice the change until it shows up during intimacy when it matters most. Here's where the science becomes even more revealing. The smallest arteries in the body are the first to show signs of vascular decline, and the arteries responsible for creating firmness in a man's body are among the smallest of all, meaning they're the earliest warning sign that blood flow isn't what it used to be. Before a man ever feels chest tightness, before a doctor ever diagnoses high blood pressure, or before any lab result turns red, his performance may already be signaling that circulation is suffering. And I've seen men panic when this happens, thinking it means something permanent, something irreversible. But more often than not, the root cause is mechanical, not medical restriction, heat pressure, and stress happening at night without them even realizing it. And that's why freeing the body at night makes such a dramatic difference. When clothing no longer presses into the pelvis, when heat isn't trapped against sensitive tissue, when the skin can breathe and the vessels can dilate naturally, circulation improves in ways men can actually feel. I've had patients tell me their morning reactions were stronger, their sensitivity returned, their confidence lifted, not because they suddenly became younger, but because their body finally had the chance to work the way it was designed to. And this is the part I always emphasize: a man's best indicator of vascular health shows up first thing in the morning. If that signal weakens, it's not just about intimacy, it's a glimpse into the entire cardiovascular system. And once men understand that connection, they stop feeling ashamed and start feeling empowered. Because improving circulation isn't about ego. It's about longevity, vitality, and protecting the very systems that carry them through life. But if circulation is the physical part of the story, there's a emotional side too, one most men never talk about, even when it affects them deeply. And the next part is where everything comes together, because the body doesn't just need freedom at night, the heart does too. And that's where we go next. Because the emotional impact of nighttime habits is far more powerful than most men realize. The moment circulation begins to change, something else shifts too, something far more subtle and often more painful than any physical symptom. Because when a man starts losing confidence in his body, even just a little, it doesn't stay confined to the physical world. It follows him into his relationships, into his marriage, into the quiet moments when the lights are off and he's lying next to someone he cares about. And this is the part many men never talk about, not even to their doctors. But I see it every day in their hesitation, in the way they avoid certain questions, in the way their voice lowers when they finally open up about what's really happening. I've had men sit in front of me and admit something I wish more people understood. That the most painful part isn't the physical struggle at all. It's the emotional distance that grows from it. They tell me they feel disconnected, hesitant, unsure of themselves, or afraid their partner is noticing changes they don't know how to explain. And I can see the weight of it on their faces, not embarrassment, but a deep, quiet worry that they're losing something they once took pride in, something meaningful, something personal. And here's where the conversation becomes more human than clinical, because intimacy isn't just about performance, it's about connection. It's about presence, it's about feeling safe with someone. And the moment the body stops cooperating the way it used to, men often retreat emotionally without meaning to. They stop initiating. They stop reaching out. They stop touching, joking, flirting, or leaning in the way they once did. Not because they don't want to, but because they're worried they won't be able to follow through. And that fear creates distance long before anything physical actually happens. But this is why nighttime habits matter far more than people think. When a man sleeps unclothed, without layers, trapping heat without tight fabric, pressing into sensitive skin, something unexpected happens. Skin touches skin, not in a sexual way, but in the simplest, most human way possible. And that contact releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the same one responsible for connection, calmness, and emotional safety. It lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, and signals to the brain, you're safe, you're close, you're still here together. I've seen couples transform from something as small as this. Not overnight, not dramatically, but gently. They begin to feel closer again. They talk more. They laugh more. The tension in the room softens. The emotional walls start to lower. And for men who sleep alone, the effect is still real. Sleeping without barriers becomes an act of self-compassion, a quiet reminder that their body is not their enemy, that they still deserve comfort, softness, freedom, and care. I've had single patients tell me they hadn't felt comfortable in their own skin for years until they tried this simple shift and realized how much tension they'd been carrying without knowing it. And this leads to one of the most important truths I wish every man understood. Emotional health and physical health are not two separate stories. They feed each other, fuel each other, heal each other. When stress lowers, blood flow improves. When connection rises, hormone balance stabilizes. When a man feels safe, either with himself or with his partner, his entire body shifts into a healthier state. But there's still one more layer to this one more part of the story men rarely consider. And it affects everything from energy to recovery to how alive they feel when they wake up. Because once emotional stress begins to ease, the body finally gains enough space to do something even more powerful, to repair itself from the inside out. And that's where the next part of this journey takes us. When emotional tension begins to ease, when a man stops carrying that quiet weight in his chest, something remarkable happens inside his body. His system finally shifts out of survival mode and back into repair mode. And this is where I've seen some of the most dramatic transformations in my patients, not because they changed their diet or started a new workout routine, but because they finally created the right conditions for their body to heal itself. And that healing doesn't happen during the day. It happens at night in the dark, in the quiet, when the body finally has permission to restore what life has drained from it. I've watched men go years without realizing that their recovery was being blocked by something as simple as heat friction and stress trapped around their core every time they slept. When the body feels restricted, compressed, or overheated, it doesn't prioritize healing. It prioritizes survival. It shifts resources away from regeneration and into protection. And that's why so many men wake up feeling stiff, swollen, foggy, or older than they actually are. Their body spent the entire night managing stress instead of rebuilding strength. But the moment that stress lifts, when the body cools naturally, when nothing presses into the pelvis or abdomen, when the skin isn't suffocated beneath synthetic layers, the nervous system shifts into what we call rest and repair mode. Heart rate lowers, inflammation decreases, tissue recovery speeds up, and the body begins producing the molecules responsible for rebuilding muscle, supporting blood vessels, restoring cells, and sharpening the brain. I've had patients tell me they started waking up with energy they hadn't felt in years, all because their system wasn't fighting all night long. And here's the science behind it. Studies show that when the body stays too warm at night, growth hormone, the hormone responsible for repair and regeneration, drops significantly. Meanwhile, inflammation markers rise. But when the body cools, even just a few degrees, growth hormone spikes, cellular repair increases, and nighttime recovery becomes deeper and more efficient. It's the difference between sleeping and healing. And most men aren't getting the healing part. I've seen this especially in men who struggle with chronic stiffness, nighttime cramps, fatigue, or slow recovery from even simple activities. Once their sleep environment changed, once they removed the friction, the heat, the compression, their symptoms improved in ways that felt almost unfairly simple. Not because their problems were minor, but because their body had been waiting for the opportunity to reset, to breathe, to rebuild. And this is what I wish more men understood. You don't lose resilience because you're older. You lose it because your body hasn't had the chance to recover the way it needs to. Give it that chance, and your strength comes back. Your clarity comes back. Your vitality comes back. Piece by piece, night by night, your body remembers how to function the way it's supposed to. But recovery is only part of the story. Because once the body begins to heal, something else happens, something deeper, something that touches not just the physical side of a man's life, but the psychological side too. And that final shift is the piece most men never expect. But it's the one that changes everything. And once the body begins to repair itself, once inflammation drops, once circulation improves, once hormones start stabilizing again, something even more meaningful starts to shift, something I've seen transform a man, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and in the way he carries himself through the world. Because when a man wakes up feeling rested, clear-headed, and strong, something powerful returns to him, his sense of identity. I can't tell you how many times I've had patients sit across from me, men in their 50s, 60s, even 70s, and tell me they felt like they were fading, like the best version of themselves was slowly slipping away. Not because of one major event, but because of a long chain of small, silent disappointments, nights of broken sleep, mornings with no energy, moments of hesitation in intimacy, days feeling less sharp, less confident, less in control. And over time, those little losses accumulate into a story men start telling themselves, maybe this is just who I am now. But the truth I wish every man knew is this: decline is not destiny. I've watched patients who thought they were past their prime come back to life piece by piece, simply because their body finally had the chance to function the way it was designed to. And the change doesn't start in the muscles or the hormones. It starts in the mind, in the moment they realize they're not broken, they're not done, they're not too late. They were just trapped in habits that kept their body from doing its job. And this is where something as simple as sleeping without barriers becomes so much more than a physical adjustment. It becomes a form of self-respect. A quiet statement that says, I care about myself enough to stop making things harder for my body. I've seen men stand taller, speak differently, carry a presence they hadn't felt in years, because when the body starts firing again, when energy returns, when drive rebuilds, when morning strength comes back, confidence naturally follows. Not the loud, showy kind, the grounded kind, the kind that comes from knowing your body is working with you, not against you. One of my patients once told me, I didn't realize how much I missed feeling like myself. And that's exactly what this shift restores, not youth, not a fantasy, but a return to self, a return to clarity, a return to the version of yourself who wakes up ready, willing, and able to show up in life fully. And it all begins with creating the right environment for the body to reset overnight, because recovery, circulation, hormones, confidence, none of it happens while the body is trapped, compressed, overheated, or stressed in the hours that matter most. And that brings us to the final piece of this entire puzzle, because once a man understands what's really happening inside his body at night, one question always rises to the surface. If the fix is this simple, so why didn't anyone tell me sooner, after spending years watching men struggle in silence and watching just as many transform? Once they finally understood what their bodies were asking for, there's one truth I hope stays with you. Long after this video ends, you are not losing yourself. Your body is simply asking for a different kind of care. Nothing about aging means you have to surrender your energy, your confidence, or your masculinity. Most of the time, your biology just needs the right environment to recover, and sometimes that change starts in the quietest place of all, the way you sleep. So if you've been waking up tired, disconnected, or feeling like something inside you is slowing down, start small. Let your body breathe at night. Let your temperature settle. Give your hormones a chance to reset and your circulation a chance to open. You don't have to change everything at once. Just allow yourself the freedom to take one gentle step, one act of care, and let your body show you what it can do. Because I promise you, the strength you thought you lost is not gone. It's waiting. And if this message spoke to you, if something in your mind said, I needed to hear that, then don't let it end here. Save this video so you can come back to it on the nights you forget to slow down. Share it with another man who might need this reminder, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. I post practical science-backed guidance for men's health, hormone balance, and sexual wellness every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update, because your health deserves consistency, not chance. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. What part of this message resonated with you the most? What changes are you thinking of trying tonight? Leave a comment below. Your experience might be exactly what another man needs to feel less alone. Take care of yourself tonight. Your body is listening, and it's ready to come back to life.